Hi, this is Bonnie. Welcome to my channel. For this video, I am going to give a brief review on the 100 books that I read in 2022. So the first book I read was By Night in Chile by Roberto Bolaño. So I know that this is an important text. This was actually assigned to us in class, but it was painfully dragging and it had entire pages without punctuation. So yeah, I rated this 3 stars. The second book is The Will in the Wilds by Charlie Ann Holmberg. This fantasy book is a retelling of The Beauty and the Beast. It's a light read and I enjoyed reading the book, however, there were plot holes. Next, The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I gave this 4 stars. This is the book that made me realize that I enjoy multiple timelines or dual timelines in a narrative style. The fourth one is a collection of poems by William Blake. It's the songs of Innocence and of Experience. Those are 2 sets of poems, and I love them so much that I created an adaptation for a final project in an English class, and highly recommend it. 5 stars. Next is Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, Mastering the Elements of Good Cooking by Samin Nosrat. I give this 5 stars. I loved it. I describe it as pragmatic, honest, and noob-friendly. So I highly recommend it if you have an interest in cooking. There's plenty of recipes in the end as well. The 6th book is A Column of Fire by Ken Follett. I gave this 5 stars. This is actually the 3rd book in the Kingsbridge trilogy. The first one is The Pillars of the Earth, followed by The World Without End. This is a chunky book at 916 pages, but I enjoyed every page. I don't think it's necessary for you to read the books in order. Actually, I think you could pick up any of the 3 and the story would make sense. So if you like historical fiction, this is a good choice. 7th book is Becoming by Michelle Obama. 5 stars. It's elegant, charmingly funny, and now one of my favorite nonfiction books ever. I highly recommend listening to the audiobook as well. Number 8, When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. 5 stars. I am aware that I've been generous with the 5 stars, but really I think they deserve it. This is a really short read, but fair warning, just because it's short, it's not going to be an easy read. It's going to be a painful one. Had me bawling by the beginning, middle, and the end. 9th book is Verity by Colleen Hoover. This was my very first Colleen Hoover book, and I honestly had high expectations because I feel that everyone's been hyping up the author, and this book in particular was always in the book groups that I was in, and it was okay. I think that some parts were just downright ridiculous though. Number 10, Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I gave this 2 stars. This is another Colleen Hoover book that I feel was always being recommended in e-reader groups and book groups, and however, this just wasn't for me, and I feel like it was just a tad dramatic. I feel like I was watching a telenovela. Number 11, Why We Sleep, Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams by Matthew Walker. I gave this 5 stars. This book single-handedly convinced me to prioritize sleep in my daily schedules. I used to wear sleep deprivation like a badge, especially due to overwork, but this book made me rethink my sleeping habits. I dare say that this book has changed my life for the better ever since, because my improved sleeping habits had made a tremendous improvement on my physical and mental health. Number 12, The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Okay, this is 5 stars, so it's another 5 stars, but this is a charming book, and I'm really glad that I didn't read the synopsis, and I won't spoil it for you as well. I'll say that this is magical realism though. I adored this, and I will likely reread it in the future. Number 13, okay, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia, Owens. I gave this 4.5 stars. This is a book talk and Bookstagram favorite as well, and it has made my way into my favorites. So read this if you like mysteries and dual timelines. 14 is Where the Story Starts by Imogen Clark. I gave this 3 stars. Reading this felt like I was reading a Reader's Digest novella. It was an easy, relaxing read, and yeah, but it was a bit bland. The 15th book is Impossible to Forget by the same author. It's by Imogen Clark. So this book explores grief and friendship. So the story revolves around a group of friends whose friendship began at university, and years later one of them tragically dies. And that person indicates a specific task on her will for each of her friends, including the guardianship of her daughter. Number 16, Atomic Habits by James Clear. So I give this 4 stars. This title always came up when I would search for self-help book recommendations, and this book asserts that the systems that you have matter more than the goals you set. Number 17, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I gave this 5 stars. I was reluctant to read this after having read a couple bad reviews, but I'm glad I gave it a chance. Read this if you're into magic and stories involving immortality. Number 18, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I gave this 4 stars. This book wasn't what I expected it to be. It spends a lot of time reminding its audience to practice empathy and humility. And my biggest takeaway from this book is that a person's spending habits will make perfect sense to them, but will not necessarily make any sense to another. And that's just because we have different backgrounds. So we should be mindful not to judge other people when it comes to spending habits. Number 19 is The Lobotomist's Wife by Samantha Green Woodruff. So I gave this 3 stars. This is a medical historical fiction novel about the use of lobotomy as treatment for basically every other psychiatric condition in the past. And overall, I actually like this book, but I hated the ending. Number 20, Eye of the Needle by Ken Follett. I gave this 4 stars. This book reminded me of the Sidney Sheldon novels that I used to read when I was young. Read this if you're into books about spies during the World War II. Number 21, The Hidden Oracle by Rick Riordan. So I give this 4 stars. It's a light, funny YA book. For those of you who are not familiar with the author, Rick Riordan has written multiple fantasy series inspired from Greek and Roman mythology. So The Hidden Oracle is the first book in the Trials of Apollo series, where it follows the story of Apollo, who in this series was sentenced to life on Earth by Zeus as an awkward, dorky, and sometimes cringy teen mortal. Number 22, The Dark Prophecy by Rick Riordan. 4 stars. I enjoyed this as much as I did the first book. Number 23, The Burning Maze by Rick Riordan. 4 stars as well. This is where the story gets a little dark, albeit still being funny. Number 24, The Tyrant's Tomb by Rick Riordan. Okay, this is the 4th book. I give it 3.5 stars. This is probably my least liked book in the series. Some parts just felt too dragging. Number 25, The Tower of Nero by Rick Riordan. So this is the last book, and it's back to 4 stars with this one. I enjoy the adventures in this series, and I like it overall. If you want to pick up a light YA book and you're into Greek mythology, or if maybe you've read Percy Jackson and the Olympians in the past, and you don't know what to read next, this series is for you. Number 26, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I gave this 5 stars. This is also a YA book based on Greek mythology. It's a retelling of the legend of Achilles and the Trojan War, told from the point of view of Patroclus. Number 27, The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. 4 stars. This was an enjoyable rom-com. Read this if you're into feminist rom-coms and the enemies to lovers trope. Number 28, Think Again by Adam Grant. I gave this 5 stars. This is a self-help book that implores its readers to constantly revisit ideas and beliefs, and I enjoyed this book immensely. I took a lot of notes. One particular section that I liked was where it encourages us to find joy in finding out that we're wrong, because ultimately that means that we're closer to the truth and we're now less wrong. Number 29, Circe by Madeline Miller. I gave this 3 stars. I bought this book largely because of the cover. This is the UK version, and I absolutely adored the gold detail. I found the pacing to be quite uneven and the ending felt flat. Number 30, It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I gave this 5 stars. So I didn't like the first couple Colleen Hoover books that I read, and honestly I had low expectations for this book, but I'm glad I gave it a go. I think this deserved all the hype, but read the trigger warnings though. Number 31, Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. 3.5 stars. I sold my copy of this book. I really wanted to like it, but I couldn't get over the writing style. I feel like it was all over the place, and the shifts in perspective and tone were always abrupt and made it confusing. I would say it was a worthy read still, just because it made me curious about topics that I won't normally read about, like Pachinko and Korean history. So that's why I gave it 3.5 stars. I think that it would have translated better into a K-drama though. Number 32, The Cartographers by Beng Shepherd. 3 stars. I initially rated this 4.5 stars, but it's now down to 3 because I just realized there were a lot of plot holes and the use of incorrect terminologies. I like the author's writing style, but this book would have benefited from more extensive research. Number 33, People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. 4.5 stars. Read this if you want a light rom-com. I actually enjoyed the banter in this one. Number 34, Anxious People by Frederick Backman. This was precious. I actually got my copy from a local book group. It was a giveaway, and it was just a book that I needed at the time. Backman's style is that he incorporates dry and witty humor with serious topics. I went in blind with this book and I found myself hooting with laughter in I think the first 3 pages and unexpectedly crying in the next. So in the end, it felt like a hug in a book. Number 35, 1984 by George Orwell. 5 stars. 5 stars, but admittedly, I wasn't able to read this in one go. I had to take plenty of breaks. The whole subject matter is just depressing and eerily accurate. Number 36, They Both Die at the End, Adam Silvera. 2.5 stars. I found it underwhelming and quite boring. It just wasn't for me. Number 37, The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. 4.5 stars. It's a funny, light romance and also uses the enemies to lovers trope. Number 38, Gallant or Gallant, I'm not really sure, by V. Schwab. 3.5 stars. I adore Victoria Schwab's writing style, her skill in imagery, and her ability to beautifully capture scenes, but unfortunately this book just wasn't able to sustain my interest. I found the plot to be a bit too simple. Number 39, The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. I give this a 5 stars. This is a masterpiece, and one that I know would stick with me for a long time. Number 40, Book Lovers by Emily Henry. 4 stars. This had fun lakeside trip vibes. I like interspersing my heavy reads with light ones, so this was a good choice after the last book I read. 41, One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. 3.5 stars. The dialogues and the banter felt too forced, and there was one scene that really grossed me out. Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Tojikazu Kawaguchi. I struggled getting through this book because of the choppy writing style. I eventually had to switch to an audiobook just so I could finish it. Number 43, How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie. 3.5 stars. I enjoy the first half of this book. It starts off fast-paced, and it hooks you in with intrigue. However, it begins to drag off, and in my opinion has a very anticlimactic ending. Number 44, The Maid by Nita Prose. 4 stars. This is a cozy mystery. There are plenty of mystery books that are full of death, sex, and violence. So if you're not in the mood for that, say you want a light mystery, read this. Number 45, The Nightingale by Christine Hanna. 4.5 stars. I read this book while I was on vacation, and I must say it was a mistake because it left me ugly sobbing by the end. Number 46, Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I give this 2.5 stars. I am yet guilty again of buying a book for the pretty cover, and I truly regret it. I found it frustratingly boring, and I had to force myself to finish it. Number 47, The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. 4 stars. There was a time last year when this was all over the Kindle groups, and this was the first of many Frida McFadden books that I've read last year. I enjoyed it. I like the short chapters, the multiple POVs, strong characterization, and the circular narrative structure. Number 48, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. 4.5 stars. I like the rich writing style, which almost read like poetry, and the rapid back and forth between timelines. I recommend this if you're into World War II historical fiction, non-linear timelines, short chapters, and multiple POVs. Number 49. Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I gave this 5 stars. This book was a cathartic read for me. I ended up hugging the book for a very long time. Read the trigger warnings though. Number 50. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I gave this 2 stars. This book wasn't for me. I found myself increasingly frustrated throughout the book because of the unrealistic plot points. Honestly, the tragedies just kept coming, and it seemed gratuitous at one point. Also, do not attempt to read the book without checking the trigger warnings. Number 51, Love from Scratch by Caitlin Hill. 4 stars. This was such a cute story. I would classify this as a feminist YA. Read this if you're into clean rom-coms, enemies to lovers, reality cooking shows, and puns. There are a lot of cheesy puns. Number 52, The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. 4 stars. I breezed through this book. I tried my best to save hardcover books that I've bought, but this was such a page turner. I would say that the twist was quite predictable, but I found the book to be well written enough to sustain my interest until the end. Number 53, Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. 3 stars. This book was written in an interview-style narration, so it reads as if you're reading a magazine. There are parts that I found funny, and the characters were endearing to an extent. However, I found the book to be underwhelming as a whole. The story seemed disjointed, perhaps partly due to the narration style, and the plot felt shallow and superficial. 54, A Man Called Uva by Frederick Backman. 5 stars. Number 55, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. 4 stars. This is an insightful book about negotiation. There were parts of it that I disagree with, but I would say that it's still a worthy read. There were a couple of tips that I found useful, and I use them from day to day. Number 56, Almond by Son Wong-pyong. I give this 4 stars. This is a heartwarming book about the unlikely friendship between a boy who is physically incapable of having feelings and a bully. I felt like I was watching a teen K-drama. Number 57, I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys. 4 stars. This is a YA historical fiction set during the dictatorship of Nicolae Ceausescu in Romania. Number 58, Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. 5 stars. I think this is one of the best written rom-coms ever. A million stars for this, actually. Number 59, Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. 4 stars. I enjoyed this as much as I did The Love Hypothesis, also written by the same author. The books are similar in that they feature women in STEM and that the romance between the main character formed with them being enemies to lovers. Number 60, I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. So I give this 4 stars. This is a memoir written by former child actor Jeanette McCurdy, and here she recounts the abuse she suffered from her mother. I imagine writing this must be a cathartic and painful experience for her. After reading this, I would say I'm glad her mom died too. Number 61, The Gunkle by Stephen Rowley. 4 stars. This gave BoJack Horseman vibes, except the main character is gay and he's not half as horrible. This book was hilarious and I think it's a perfect beach read. Number 62, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I gave this 4 stars. This is a beautifully written poetic meditation that in my opinion is best read in short bursts rather than in one go. Number 63, Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. 2 stars. This is one of my least liked books in 2022. I found it cringy and the entire plot felt like it led nowhere. It just wasn't for me. Number 64, How to Keep House While Drowning by Casey Davis. Give this 5 stars. This book is meant for neurodivergent people struggling with keeping a regular cleaning and organizing routine. I felt that this book offers sympathetic and practical advice. I have been employing a trick or two regularly since. And it's also short at 156 pages, so it's readable, especially for someone who has little spare time to read. No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. 2.5 stars. This was a difficult read. I struggled to empathize with the author and to understand the sheer point of the book. There were a few parts that caught my attention, specifically his musings on society, but the rest of it was difficult to read given the amount of misogyny and sexism. Number 66, The Locked Door by Frida McFadden. 4 stars. Frida McFadden knows how to write a fast-paced thriller. The short sentences, short and suspenseful chapters will keep you turning the pages. I didn't even realize I finished this in one sitting. Number 67, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. 4 stars. This was an adventure in a book. It's a magical realism story that doesn't really make sense, but will impact you, I guess, depending on your current mental and emotional state and your current perspective in life. I personally read this at a time when I was questioning a lot in my future and in my past choices. And this was like a pat in the back from a friend saying it's going to be alright. Number 68, Every Summer After by Carly Fortuny. I gave this 2 stars. I found it to be an enjoyable summer read until the reveal at the end, and then I ended up hating the whole book. Just no. Number 69, Do Not Disturb. I give this 4 stars. It's another page turner from Frida McFadden. I tore through this book as well, and I recommend it for anyone looking for a fast-paced thriller. Number 70, Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. 4.5 stars. This is a tribute to And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I haven't read that book prior to reading this one, and I immediately added And Then There Were None to my reading list afterwards. I enjoyed reading this, and I had to stare at the wall for quite some time after the big reveal. Number 71, Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. 3 stars. I found this to be fairly enjoyable, but also predictable. It's a rom-com written by one of my favorite audiobook narrators, and I did immersive reading by listening to her narrate while reading the text on my Kindle. It was okay. If you're in the mood for pleasant fluff, This is a good choice. Number 72. We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. 3 stars. I had mixed feelings about this book. On one hand, I enjoyed the narrative style and I was blown away by the plot twist. However, I didn't like the one-dimensional characters and unrealistic conversations. Still, it was compelling enough for me to want to read the prequel. And that's number 73, Family of Liars. 4 stars. I enjoyed this better than the first book. I felt that the characters were more developed and the book answered much of the questions you might have in We Were Liars. Number 74, The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. 4 stars. I was hooked on the story from the get-go. It's fast-paced, full of plot twists that I did not see coming. Number 75, Someone Who Will Love You in All Your Damaged Glory by Raphael Bob Waxberg. 5 stars. This is a collection of short stories written by the creator of BoJack Horseman. Prepare yourself for his signature dark and bizarre humor. I recommend savoring this one story at a time so you have time to recover from each one. Number 76. The Perfect Son by Frida McFadden. 5 stars. As with her other books, I devoured this in one sitting and I didn't even realize I was in the last chapter. I did not see the plot twist as well. I would think at one point that I figured it out, but I actually haven't. Number 77. The Inmate by, again, Frida McFadden. So yes, another 5-star read for me by Frida McFadden. The first sentence of the book alone was enough to root me to a sofa and read there for hours. It was amazing. Number 78. The Surrogate Mother, Frida McFadden. 2 stars. This was the only book by Frida McFadden that I've disliked so far. It's still fast-paced, but the whole premise of the story was just not for me. It's also predictable. Number 79. Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. 4 stars. Feeney's books, in my opinion, are much more mellowed down and have less shock value in comparison with thriller books written by American authors, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on your preferences. Personally, this was a cozy, pleasant read for me. Number 80, Survive the Night by Riley Sager. 2 stars. This was awfully boring, I'm sorry. Number 81, Leadership and Self-Deception, Getting Out of the Box by the Arbinger Institute. 5 stars. The subtitle of this book might as well be Getting Your Head Out of Your Ass. This book admittedly has some cheesy, overdramatic tones, but it conveys something important that I think every person should consider. Number 82. Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. 3 stars. Mixed feelings towards this book. It was incredibly slow-paced, which again is good or bad depending on your preferences or your mood. The plot points are straightforward and don't have you bracing for a shocking plot twist. I gave this 3 stars simply for the author's way with prose, honestly. Number 83. Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. 4 stars. This is the sequel to Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which I earlier mentioned was intolerable for me. However, I did find myself enjoying the second book. I felt more connected to the characters and the story overall. Number 84. The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. 4 stars. I applaud this book for having the ability to build up suspense when there's nothing going on. I would read the author's other books. 85. Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. 3 stars. This is very slow build-up, but overall entertaining. The ending left plenty of unanswered questions, though. 86. Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. 5 stars. A sweet, charming, philosophical book about grief, death, and friendship. This is something I would reread, maybe on a rainy day. Number 87, And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. 5 stars. This is the murder mystery book that has inspired a lot of modern crime fiction and mystery novels, including a couple in my 2022 list. I could not put it down, and I kept guessing the whole time, only to be proven wrong. Number 88, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. 5 stars. This was reminiscent of the Midnight Library, but in science fiction form. It was a great adventure and instantly made Blake Crouch one of my instant buy authors. Number 89, Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. 4 stars. This was unsettling because the whole premise of the book may seem far-fetched, but is actually maybe possible in the kind of world that we have. It reminded me of the Korean series Squid Game. 90, Beach Read by Emily Henry. 2 stars. This book put me in a slump. I struggled getting past the first chapter and I had to force myself to finish the book. I found it boring and the characters were just uninteresting for me. 91. The Guest List by Lucy Foley. 4 stars. This is a murder mystery that takes place on a remote island. It is written in multiple POVs and I highly recommend listening to the audiobook. The audiobook features a cast of narrators and I think they did a wonderful job in portraying each character. Read or listen to this if you want something similar to And Then There Were None and Daisy Darker. Number 92, It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. 2 stars. This is the sequel to It Ends With Us. I love the first book and what it stood for, but I think the sequel was completely unnecessary. I think it cheapened the story as a whole and romanticizes efforts in a relationship that should actually be the bare minimum. Number 93, Recursion by Blake Crouch. 5 stars. This was just as fun and engaging as Dark Matter. I enjoyed every page. Read this if you want a good science fiction thriller and if you like the movie Back to the Future. Number 94, The Change by Kirsten Miller. 2.5 stars. It's a feminist fiction about women who develop powers in their menopausal years. I really wanted to like this, but I couldn't get past the crude writing. Number 95, Rules of Civility by Amor Towles. 5 stars. As a whole, the synopsis of this story seems lackluster, and it really isn't complicated when you read it. However, Towles has the ability to captivate you with his storytelling and his wit. I just know I'll read every single one of his books. 96, 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. 3 stars. It's an okay thriller. On one hand, it was engaging and fast-paced, but it was predictable. I also did not like how it gave spoilers on books that I have on my reading list, such as The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie and The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I'm putting here a list of books that it spoils. There are 8 books. Number 97, His and Hers by Alice Feeney. 2.5 stars. There were too many coincidences in the story and plot points that did not make sense. Also, one of the shocking reveals hinged on a person not recognizing a person they've been friends with in the past. Anyway, I'm adding in here a list of trigger warnings for this book. Number 98, The It Girl by Ruth Ware. 2 stars. I think the last 100 pages of this book ruined it for me. This book was too long for a thriller, and I think the author tried too hard to throw in a bunch of red herrings that made the ending completely senseless. The ending was conflicting with some of the scenes in the book. Number 99, Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. 3.5 stars. The plot was quite similar to The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, though I would consider it a bit more tame when it comes to shock value. It was fast-paced and fairly enjoyable. However, what I didn't like was that some decisions of the main character absolutely did not make sense. 100, Never Lie by Frida McFadden. 4 stars. I capped off this year with the thriller written by Frida McFadden. I wasn't as blown away as I was with her previous books, but still enjoyable. And that's it. That's the 100 books I read in 2022.